Cairo, Egypt. Sitting atop a plateau just a few miles west of the Nile River is the Giza necropolis, perhaps the most famous collection of ruins in the entire world. Believed to be constructed during ancient Egypt's 4th dynasty, around 2550 BC, these limestone monuments attract thousands of tourists every day who come to marvel at the immense pyramids, forbidding tombs, and a mysterious stone sentinel known as the Sphinx.
I think you can argue that the Sphinx is the most recognizable statue anywhere in the world. Its scale is immense. It's one single piece of stone. It is cut from the natural rock of the Giza plateau.
The Sphinx stands 240 feet long, 66 feet tall, and 62 feet wide. For thousands of years, this massive statue has been an object of both fascination and wonder. But even after centuries of study, the Sphinx holds many secrets that archaeologists are still trying to unravel.
The Sphinx that we know today, the Sphinx from the Great Pyramids of Giza, is the most famous of all sphinxes. But there are sphinxes all over ancient Egypt. There are smaller sphinxes. There's an avenue full of sphinxes between the temples.
But the Great Sphinx at Giza is something very different. It's a single sculpture. It sits in a very particular place. It doesn't seem to have performed the same function at all. What was it for? This is what we really want to know.
No one has understood exactly what it means, because for literally thousands of years, the Sphinx was buried up to its neck in sand. So it's only a head sticking out of the sand for much of its history.
There is a very famous painting of Emperor Napoleon standing in front of the Sphinx, buried still at this point, up to its shoulders. You might think, what has Napoleon got to do with Egypt and the Sphinx? Well, in fact, Napoleon led an invasion of Egypt in 1798, which had a big impact back in Europe in raising awareness and interest in ancient Egypt sites.
It wasn't until the 1920s that a team of archaeologists, led by engineer Emile Barres, succeeded in unearthing the Sphinx from the desert sands.
They were able to expose it and to reveal for the first time in centuries that this was not just a head, a disembodied head, but a full Sphinx sculpture. And this is a watershed moment for us understanding the Sphinx.
Archaeologists and Egyptologists like myself believe that the Sphinx was sculpted around 2500 BC by King Khephren as a part of his funerary complex. But a lot of scholars disagree about the Sphinx, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding when was the Sphinx actually sculpted.
One of the most important documents we have to do with the dating of the Sphinx is the inventory stele. This is a commemorative stone that actually records details of how the pharaoh Khufu repaired the Sphinx after it was struck by lightning. The significance of this is that Khufu came before Khafre, the pharaoh who is conventionally said to have constructed the Sphinx.
The inventory stela has an inscription that goes back to about 4,600 years ago. And that inscription says that the Sphinx is a much older structure that the Egyptians adopted and repaired and venerated.
Based on the inscriptions on the inventory stela, there are some archaeologists who believe that the Sphinx is so ancient that it could predate any records in human history that are known to exist. And some researchers are convinced that physical evidence of the Sphinx's true age can be found on the structure itself.
The first time I visited the Sphinx was in the summer of 1990. My early studies of the Sphinx looked at the erosional features on the body of the Sphinx and comparing that to other erosional features right on the Giza Plateau. And what I found was the body of the Sphinx and the walls of the Sphinx enclosure are weathered differently than everything else on the Giza Plateau. The rest of the plateau shows classic wind erosion, but what is on the Sphinx is water weathering. It's rainfall, precipitation, and this makes no sense when the Sphinx is sitting on the edge of the Sahara Desert that has been a bone-dry desert for literally thousands of years. So what I concluded is that the body of the Sphinx, and therefore the original statue, had to go back to pre-Sahara times, when there was a much more temperate climate, much more moisture, much more rainfall, and it has to go back not just a little bit into that period, but quite far back, given that we have incredible amount of weathering and erosion on the Sphinx. I now think that it goes back to the end of the last ice age, circa 10,000 BC. I am convinced that it is a ruin from pre-dynastic Egypt.